All right, it is end of the school year.
Indeed it is.
That's true.
It has ended.
We had some a graduation festivity. What was that? Almost a week ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
About the time now. Yep.
Was this, Matt, was this your first year teaching the... Oh, no, you taught that last year with Lydia,
Correct.
too.
Correct, yeah. So it's 2 years up now. Yep.
Anything that you learned, anything new you got out of teaching that the second time through? Did you do anything different? You want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I'm scared where this is going.
I'm excited where this is going.
I added to it, and I cut some stuff. Like every year, you want to look at what you're doing as a teacher, and you want to go, hey, how can I improve this? How can I make this connect a little bit more? And I also wanted to dive down deeper in some of the other worldviews as we talked about them, because I really wanted to make sure that as I talked about them, I spoke about them in a way that they would say, yes, that's what we believe. And then we can get into our disagreement. But I want it to be a real disagreement and not a contrived disagreement.
Clarification before you're arguing for a position.
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
I want to do them enough credit to say, okay, I am going to portray you as accurately as I possibly can.
It's kind of a humble way to say that he spent scores and scores of hours, like just actually researching, like watching videos, reading, to know that what he was presenting was not a straw man of a faith system.
I missed the very first sentence of this podcast, which I think is important. This is like this is a Colts class.
No, so
Worldview?
this is going to be basically the class is called World Philosophies.
Okay.
It is essentially an apologetics class that I did,
Gotcha.
in which I start the year off with 10 worldviews basically that are, one of them's Christianity and then 9 others, and I try my very best to project what they believe well. And even in a private school setting, you're going to have kids from other worldviews, and you're going to talk to them, and you want to make sure that, like, hey, we're going to disagree, and I'm going to have the courage to disagree with you, but I don't want to do it in a way that is unnecessarily divisive.
Did you break up Protestantism? I can never say this word.
Protestantism?
Yes, and Catholicism?
I did, yes.
Yeah.
So
Wait, they're basically the same thing, right?
starting off hot. Okay, good. There we go. Nice, very nice. I did break those up and talk through differences as much as I could. And obviously, even in a school that is, Northwood, that is a Protestant school, there are several Catholic families here.
Yeah.
And so I'm always, kind of want to make sure I get that right.
I remember a couple years ago, I tell the same stories all the time. That's what happens when you get old. But I was doing chess club over lunch, and someone was just playing the music of Ave Maria. And I was about to start railing, and I was like, is anyone in here Catholic? And one girl, you may know, she was like, oh, yes, I am. And I was like, okay, I'm glad I asked that before. Not that I wouldn't.
I would have expected you just to start singing.
Yeah, I thought you meant that. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, I could not sing the Ave Maria and have that be heartfelt.
Hey, here's your chance right now. You got the mic. You just belt it
It's a
out.
hot mic, sir. Get after it.
Yeah. So obviously today started out our series on talking about the government. So we thought maybe we would just get your input on today's episode that dropped today.
I'm sure they just consume it as soon as it drops. I know
another
it.
Take Two episode.
I did listen to it.
Oh,
today.
nice.
So
Look
there
at
we
that.
go.
Let's keep going down the table. Good job, Matt. A+. Jonathan.
Some of us still work during the summer.
You can smell the self-righteousness.
This is why we have them together. We've only had them apart until,
I thought about the arrangement at the table when I came in
great.
here, and I thought, surely, they'll have us on opposite ends to do this right. But then they set this thing up, obviously
a mic.
intentionally,
That's right.
where we're sharing a mic and a very small amount of space.
Yeah.
So
very calculated, very intentional. And last time, we talked about teaching and that kind of thing, and we thought, let's make this explosive. Let's talk about the government, get you guys together.
Sure. Yeah,
politics, it's going to be great.
That's good. All right. Well, I think we're ready to maybe dive in. One of you should say our key phrase, but then the other of you has to say, what is it? Roll that, twang, play that,
Fire up.
fire up that.
He knows.
music.
Yeah. Second nature.
That's him. So I'll just say, let's take it to the next level.
And let's fire up that twangy music. Let's fire up that twangy music.
From the hearts of the Low Country in South Carolina.
It's the Take Two podcast, where we take theology to the next level. We actually have an election for us locally coming upon us. Primaries, when is that? Next Tuesday? I don't know.
It's very
I
soon.
am getting slammed with texts
Yep.
and calls.
Mailers.
Man, I just hate this time of year. But So when we talk about politics, clearly we represent our employers and our churches. Everything we say is exactly what.
That's a no. Yeah, if you're not picking up on the sarcasm.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. So these are our own ideas, and really we're just trying to grapple with the topic as a whole. When we were getting set up, which actually took quite a bit, Jonathan and Matt were just talking about how easy this is and how they have it all settled.
That's exactly what we were saying this whole time. Again, let's put that in the sarcasm font when the transcript comes out.
Hopefully, people can read my. I just have to. You had to say it the opposite, you know.
Yeah, you love doing that. Creates no confusion. But I like what you're saying, because I was even thinking through this. I was like, man, I feel much better about systematic theology and biblical theology, and don't have these nice, neat categories for politics and governments. And I think Matt and Jonathan in the text, you guys, I think you had a really good text that was like, man, it's good to acknowledge that we're still working through stuff potentially, and we don't have everything figured out, and it's not like a open shut case, black, white all the time.
Correct. I think there's going to be certain things, I think we'll get to them as we talk more, that are pretty clear. And the Bible's clear on, and I think when the Bible's clear, we should be clear.
That's
and
good.
I think when it's hazier, I think we should be much more humble in how we approach it, and that's one thing I want to try to make sure I do as I talk through this.
Yeah, me and Moses, we're two of the most humble people. I remember being like 23, and I remember starting out being very young and being very conservative. And I'm just realizing I still have this on, but we'll go from there.
I looked down. I have mine too, so I looked down to make sure I did not have mine on as well. I'm like, oh no.
You know, it has this backwards. There we go.
So I can't tell you how many times I've gone to like Publix or whatever with a lanyard on like that. Look like an absolute crazy person.
Anyways, when I was younger, I remember actively campaigning for George Bush Sr. in his second thing against Clinton, and I grew up in Arkansas.
Wow.
So I was like a minority. It was a big deal. And I heard this phrase that, you know, when you are young, you have the heart of I'll just say the party's Democrat, and then when you're older, you have the mind of a Republican. I always was like, yeah. But even I think that I have come away from that. So as you're saying, you know, not that I don't think that those can kind of generally describe those two parties, but I think even looking back over the last 20 years of politics, when I thought that I had gotten past the naivete that my peers had, really I was still naive in a lot of that. So I think I just say that to say that we probably are all still growing and trying to understand, you know, how politics works, how does it integrate with that.
He's saying we believe in evolution.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
That's good.
All right, so we just have a number of questions here that we thought we might work through. The first one is, how much should a Christian judge a politician's individual character?
Oh, this is such a good question, because in all those mailers and campaigns, everyone's like attacking each other's character, or they're saying like, I'm the honest candidate, or I do things right.
Yeah.
And so that's like always, I feel like, whether you like someone or don't like someone, either downing someone's character or endorsing it, or maybe you're like, I don't love it, but what else am I supposed to do?
Drain the swamp, but of course that assumes you're not part of the swamp.
Correct, yes.
Yes.
Because otherwise you're getting flushed. Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about this question a lot, and I would love to say I have clear answers on this, but I do think about it a lot because clearly I have certain ideas in my head that I think are biblical to the best of my ability to understand it, that I also think are good for society as a whole. But I do also think if I have good policies in mind, and if a candidate matches in at least word policies that I think are good, but I don't believe they have the character to back them up, I think that creates huge problems.
That's a really good point.
Because I'll give the current example here, because why not just go ahead and lob the grenade and get started?
Jump
do
in
it.
the deep end.
We're going through a war or a ceasefire where we're still shooting at each other in Iran. And it's a very serious issue, and I honestly could understand people being on either side of the war. However, if you were on the pro-war side, you would want the person in charge to approach the issue very seriously, because ultimately lives are at stake. We have lost American lives over there. And if you don't feel like the people in charge have the character to carry out what you may believe is a good policy well, it will not only make most people look at your policy differently, but it will also potentially affect lives, if that makes sense.
That's really good. I'm curious. military background guy,
Yeah.
like you looking at chain of command, and like how does that impact? You probably feel that more viscerally than a lot of people.
Yeah, and I guess I think it's difficult with our current president to ferret out what is his true nature and what is his facade. I think that
so.
sometimes we see the real him, and sometimes we see a fake him that he's trying to put on for bluster, for just for effect's sake. So I don't want to be naive and assume that everything that I dislike about him is that, because I know there are some deep down things that are wrong with him.
Correct.
Like signing Bibles and having a statue.
Yeah, the golden statue of him was a bit
Yeah, I feel
strong.
like I've read that somewhere.
But I can see a world where, please don't. I am not making a comparison between these two people, but some people might say that our current administration is a bully, right? Well, I think we think that at some point in time Jesus is going to reign and he's going to have all power, but we fully trust his character, right? And I think that's the point that you're getting at, whereas we might not fully trust Trump's character. You know what I'm
Correct.
saying?
Yeah, and that's the concern.
And so all I'm saying is that I think sometimes having someone who can push other weaker leaders around and get what is, I guess, good for America or what's right, which obviously is up for debate as well.
Correct.
Could be a good thing, but obviously, there's some level of decorum that you would want any president to have, and I don't know that we currently get that.
No, and I think the problem I run into is, as I think about this as a Christian, is we tend to elect people who are great at campaigning and not people who are great at doing the job of president or senator or whatever. And so we as people have decided that a lot of times what we want is performance, even from our politicians. And then what happens afterwards is when real situations come up, we're surprised, and I've seen this on both sides of the political aisle, that the people don't seem quite ready for the moment to approach it with the seriousness that they need to, because they're professional campaigners that now have the job and they're the dog that's caught the car, and it's like, okay, but now you got to do real stuff, and there's very boring, tedious stuff that makes people's lives run, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Totally. I think, and I don't want to move through this too quickly, but is there like a sliding scale? Is there a point where you would say, okay, character has passed this threshold, it's a no-go. I cannot vote for this, or it's like, hey, policies I like, check. Character's really, really bad. I'm always gonna, say yes. You know what I mean?
I struggle with that.
I do too.
Hard. And I think full disclosure, as we talk about kind of having evolving views and trying to make sense of all of this, I think I swung really hard away from any kind. I think later on we may talk about like to what level Christians, want to be engaged in politics and that kind of thing. I think I mistakenly swung just so far out of it because I was very disenfranchised around 2014, 15, 16 to see kind of the overwhelming support of a candidate that I truly believed was just morally bankrupt. And to be fair, both the candidates at that time were morally bankrupt. But I think I just kind of saw that and just was like, I'm out. Like I just stepped back and didn't really have any kind of involvement in those two election cycles. And that was really a struggle for me, and I think even a lot of bitterness about just what I was seeing in culture, in Christian culture, this kind of widespread championing of a person whose moral character I found deficient in a leader. And I've kind of come around lately to be thinking, man, I stepped too far out of that realm. Like I just stopped paying attention to politics altogether. Like I was like, I do not want to have anything to do with this. I'm so disenfranchised, and I think that's a sinful step. I think that's a step too far out of the kind of thing that would cause you to be working for the good of your city, right? Which is something that we see in the New Testament that we should be doing.
Now that's really good because I feel like it's easier to be apathetic and just be like, I'm saying everything's bad.
The tough part about that is the apathy can get dressed up in some self-righteousness.
Totally. I relate to so much of what you said, because it's like these people they couldn't coach a soccer team. Like it's like the leader, like morals, like at some level you have to be qualified by just not being totally. But I think you're right.
And Michael's been around me for long enough to. Michael has seen many epics of my life where I was just kind of insufferable about different things.
Let's talk about that.
That's another podcast. That's a whole other podcast. Yeah. But I think around 2016, Well, that's your whole experience. So
correct.
I probably shouldn't be there for that one. You guys just handle that. I'll come back later and clean it up. But I think around 2016, 2017, I was probably just a little bit insufferable and with a little bit of self-righteousness about, like, I'm just distancing myself from this because this is such a mess, and to try to dress it up in some kind of righteousness rather than kind of step into the fray with some kind of purpose, some kind of desire to do better, to do more. I just took a step back, and I think that's a wrong call.
I think during that time of your insufferability, and the thing that makes it somewhat reasonable is because I think there's such a spectrum, because we would have discussions, and I would say, yeah, the things that you're saying, I don't believe, I don't feel, I don't think that way, but there are Christians who did, and probably still do. I think there are Christians, and maybe quote-unquote Christians, nominal Christians, who would give our current administration a pass on everything. And I think that's wrong. I think there are Christians who would never consider harm to our country as good, even if it furthered God's, what he wants to do. Not that I think that we should work towards that. So I think that you might have, like, there was a phrase that got bantered around a lot, Christian nationalism during that time.
That's a loaded term.
Yeah, it is a loaded term, because I'm a Christian and I want what's best for America in some sense.
And it turns out that biblical principles do lead to better results than non-biblical principles in governing.
Right. And so then I think, I know that our nation as a whole has not had a clean slate. Like, we've done stuff that you look under, in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, like, I don't know that we were on the moral high ground in that thing that we were involved in then, but maybe it helped us, have cheaper TVs or something. I don't know.
Right, yeah.
So it's like you said, it is a quagmire. I don't know that there's like a single unifying thing.
Well, I will say this too, and forgive me for cutting you off there. Well, thank you. Look at there. We're making progress. But the disorienting thing, and the reason why I think I understand where Jonathan was coming from in 2016 was the Republican Party was the same party that was saying character is destiny in 1999 with Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
And saying basically, if we can't trust you in that way, we cannot trust you in office. And that same party then made the exact opposite arguments. And what you saw was like this explosion of tribalism, where each side was basically retreating to its own camp, and basically the only place where it could have any real influence would be to critique people within its camp. And yet, that's the one place where no one would criticize anybody, and that's what becomes difficult. If that makes any sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
And it was very frustrating to watch, because things I actually believed growing up, and everybody kind of shifted because the team shifted. And so when I talk to kids today, it kind of blows their mind to say, like, hey, the Republican Party that you know in 2025 or whatever believes a lot of very different things than it believed in 1999, in 2004, in 2014.
Yeah.
And so, whichever side you come down on this argument, I know I'm dominating talk here, I'm sorry.
It's good.
Whichever side you come down on this argument, you must then be consistent if that's the case.
Yeah.
When I think people get really upset is you are very much so utilitarian with your own party, but with the other party you're an idealist.
Oh, that's so true, yeah. That's really good. So if we're pressing on this question a little more, are there any, and maybe we can't answer it totally, but are there any specific moral pitfalls that are like, man, this is definitely out, or it's like everyone kind of decides for themselves, and it's like conscience wins the day at the end.
I mean, and it depends on the issue, and it depends on the individual conscience, and I understand people have different opinions than me on this. But I'll say this, like there's several candidates who are currently, particularly there's a primary in Texas this week for Texas Senate, in which the guy in charge is has done 1,000 horrible things. One of them being he's grossly used state funds. And like when you're just grossly using other people's money in that way, I feel like, particularly as a conservative, that's a thing that should stand out like as like a cardinal sin for conservatives, and yet that's the person who just won the Republican primary for Texas Senate.
Yeah, no, that's good, and it is alarming how much like money is poured into these races.
Correct.
You're like, wow, a lot of attention. There's a lot of people that are really pouring in where these things are a big deal, and a lot of eyeballs and that kind of thing. Michael?
Yeah, I was going to say, going back to the utilitarian question, if we look at Trump first term, a lot of people said maybe the pretentious one at the end even said he's just pandering to the right. He doesn't really believe those things. I don't know if you ever said those things or not.
Oh, I said those exactly.
And for the record, as much as I don't want to be on this team, you have set it up here by putting us in the same pod together. I also said those things.
Yeah. But I mean, I think he, by and large, especially with like some of the Supreme Court justice appointments and stuff, like he pandered and he like came through on that pandering and like got us the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which hasn't solved all abortion issues, but at least it makes it more solvable. And so it's like I struggle when I look at how do you weigh all of that? I think I've said this before, but I should say it again. In the primaries in 2016, I can go back and find the post on Facebook where I said, everyone in South Carolina, we need to get behind either Rubio or Cruz, because if we don't get behind one of those and like land on one of them, we're going to end up with Trump as our nominee. So I saw this out. So I was I was never a never Trumper, but I was like an anti-Trumper at least at first. So
but before the podcast, you were really going on and on how much you love Trump. No, but I think all of this is really, really good to think about. And even as we're trying to think about, you mentioned you were like campaigning for someone in Arkansas like years ago. Is there a difference between like, you're going to vote for someone begrudgingly versus like, hey, I'm openly campaigning for this guy?
Yeah.
I would be honest. I pull my vote back before I vote for someone begrudgingly. And I don't know. I still haven't settled that. I still haven't settled that for myself. I got to a point with both Trump elections where I was like, I don't know what is better, because you're talking. There is a pragmatic or kind of utilitarian view of like, is it net good in spite of the horrible character of this man? Is there a net good to the nation for him having been in that position? And I don't know. I think probably there is a net good that has come. However, I still think about things in terms of the kind of two kingdoms here. And I wonder, like, I got to a point with at least one of those elections, I don't remember which cycle it was, that I was like, I admitted to myself, I would rather have a bad president who the whole kind of conservative right would recognize as a bad person, morally bad person, than somebody who is going to sneak in, which I feel like Trump has snuck into the evangelical side and pulled people that are kind of just nominal or carnal Christians and kind of used that as his base of movement. I got to a point where I was like, I'd almost rather have an outright evil than a veiled one.
That's what's so tough.
But what makes that really difficult is if that had happened and the other candidate had won neither of those times, then the Roe v. Wade decision would not have been overturned.
Which was an awesome day. Which was an incredible day. I felt so thankful for that day.
Those Supreme Court justices would not have been appointed. Like we would have actually gotten a different set of Supreme Court justices, and the court would have been stacked for the next however many years. And so that is really challenging for me. And I'm just openly admitting I can't settle that. I can't make the pieces fit together right now in my mind about what I'm supposed to do with that.
And I'll say this, on this subject. I do think there's a difference. And that's me personally, because I do think basically there's a type of person who's far more likely, I think it's most people, to evangelize their political positions than their religious perspectives. And you are basically evangelizing for a candidate, and the thing that you are wrapping yourself around is not, in a lot of ways, by their personality, maybe in their policies, but in their personality reflecting Christ. To the degree that you show alacrity in celebrating them and championing them publicly, it does diminish your witness to some extent in my mind. However, I think it's Yuval Levin, who worked actually in the first Trump White House, but is a more traditional conservative. He made a point that said, when we just vote just basically for the best possible outcome based on policy, what I think happens a lot of time is over time, you have a hard time convincing yourself that I'm voting for the lesser of two evils. You eventually have to convince yourself that the person you're voting for is actually good, because no one wants to be in a morally dubious position as they kind of narrate their own life.
I
that
see
makes
that,
sense.
yeah.
And so you see people who start off very begrudgingly supporting a candidate who they find to be kind of oleaginous in some way, and over time it gets to oleaginous. Yeah, there you go. Good. There we go. Yeah, I got the English teacher all fired over here.
Oligarchy?
Just oily and smart. Just that kind of thing. You know what I mean? They do that kind of thing. But like you get people who slowly change their mind about them over time, because I think it is difficult to in your head justify the fact that I am supporting with my vote and giving power to someone who I know has real issues.
Are you saying, so Jesus said, where you put your treasure, there your heart follows. Are you saying where you put your vote, your heart will eventually follow, whether it should or not?
I think it does a lot of times.
Spot on.
We don't want, I don't think we want to admit when we vote for somebody who we think is not a good guy that they're as bad as they are, because it reflects negatively on us as a supporter of them, even if it's a quiet vote inside of a booth somewhere.
Man, I think that captures like everything y'all are saying. It's like you got this tension. Is it a net good? Or am I saying, well, I guess the end justifies the mean, and it's like, I don't love that.
And I reject pragmatism as a philosophy, right?
Yes.
Like philosophically, I'm opposed to pragmatism, utilitarianism. But does that then do I
feel like
Michael just got super uptight.
Michael loves the end justifies the memes.
No, I was one of the I was
go ahead.
finish the point. Yeah. Did you have more of a point to make?
Well, not now.
Now we're all shook.
I heard
You made
this.
a look that makes all uncomfortable.
If you were not watching YouTube, get on YouTube and zoom in on the face, because boy, what a face.
I only make the face because I've heard this argument before, and I love you, Jonathan, but I hate this argument because I think that politics at some level is nothing more than pragmatism.
That's wrapped up so closely.
And that's why it's a challenge. That's why there is this dichotomy, because in my philosophical leanings and in my life, I say that I reject pragmatism. Do I carry that through into politics, or is that something that has to be discarded in order to engage in politics? That's a hard thing.
Yeah, because pragmatism, utilitarianism is a theory of ethics, which should inform what we consider good and bad. But our politics should be feel free to disagree with me, but I think politics is in its essence trying to get your ethics enacted. And so it should be a utilitarian effort to get non-utilitarian ethics codified into law, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so like the people that are like, man, totally want to abolish abortion, you'd be like, you need to stop that because we need to take the baby step. Or, there's these people take different approaches where they're hardline / hey, that's not going to happen, so let's just take a little step.
Steps,
exactly, and I just use abortion because that's obviously a huge issue. But,
that's kind of, so like Scott Klusendorf, out of Life Institute training in Atlanta, I believe. He's a huge pro-life guy. He would say, no abortion on demand ever, but he would definitely get behind a law that says no abortions after 8 weeks, even though he knows that life starts at conception. He would want the 8 weeks
because more realistic and it's better.
We're saving babies' lives from 8 weeks old and older, whereas right now 20 weeks and older are only the ones saved.
Because I do think there's a subset. I don't know if like Jeff Durbin and these kind of people are like, we're just holding the line. We're not saying abortion's okay. Is essentially
we would never vote for a law that was less than perfect. But you've seen the left has made tremendous ground. Not that we should always employ what the left is doing, but tremendous ground in areas of like LGBT type stuff by just taking baby steps. Oh, this is all we're looking for. We just want this, and like they just and I'm fine with taking baby steps to, for pro-life type stuff. But I think the pragmatism that I'm talking about is, am I going to vote for a candidate that is like 100% opposite of me, or mostly the same as me in policies, but man, I don't agree with them, or those types of things. That's the type of pragmatism that I was thinking of.
And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong here. I don't know if we want to, in the next 10 minutes, land the plane on this segment. If people have
just settle it so that we have the answers.
Settle just so we have time for other episodes.
Well, Jonathan's going to come down from on high with stone tablets and give us the final word.
I can go ahead and just tell you what it is.
Good.
Well, and maybe can we include this in the last one?
That's what I was. We got 10 minutes is what I was thinking maybe to talk about. Are Christians morally obligated to vote, or can abstaining be better choice in some elections? With kind of there's this more kind of popular back and forth, like Wayne Grudem was talking with John Piper, and John Piper famously is like, I can't vote against my conscience. Wayne Grudem's like, you really need to vote, and those are two people that I love and love their thought process, but even their conscience kind of led them to different sides of it. And they had really good dialogue about it, and I think it was helpful to see that play out.
Yeah, what is really encouraging is to know that there are redeemed, regenerated people on both sides of this. Kind of like young earth, old earth, right? There are redeemed, regenerated. We think that there are some young. So it is encouraging that you can love Jesus and have a new heart and have a difference of opinion on this, and that not be the end of the world. Like, it doesn't have to be the most divisive thing. I'm just going to own it. I have abstained from elections based on that, like kind of leaning into the John Piper side of that discussion.
And as have I, and I think going back to kind of the pragmatic approach, speaking from a pragmatic perspective here, if the candidate, particularly in this case we're talking about the Republican Party, knows that the pro-life movement, knows that traditional conservatives are always going to vote out of their conscience and always going to vote on their side, you no longer become somebody they need to make concessions to. When you're a guaranteed vote from a pragmatic standpoint, there will be no negotiating with you to ensure your vote. It's only when you show that your vote is maybe not up for grabs to the other side because you may disagree too much, but it's up for grabs whether I show up to the polling station on that day, polling booth, whatever it is. I can't get my terminology right. It's only at that point in time that they must make concessions to you. And so I think it would speak volumes if a lot of Christians, if there's a candidate who they think is too far gone for them to be able to support them, or they say too strong of things on a political issue that really matters to Christians, to say we're abstaining as a unit, as a block, because that will ultimately make them have to make concessions to you and to what you think is a just position.
No, I as well have in the past abstained from pretty significant votes, and I think you nailed it too, Jonathan, earlier in the podcast, where it's good to abstain if your conscience drives you. It's not good to abstain if you're like, I'm checking out.
If it's just apathy or laziness.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's a distinction there where I think a lot of people are like, I'm just checking out of this. I'm lazy about it. I'm not going to think through it. But, and I'm excited for on a later podcast where you walk through some of history with church governments and that kind of thing, or how the church functioned. But it's like, I think there's some really good examples of Puritans that abstained, but it was moral. They felt like that was a moral obligation in certain aspects. So
you can't accuse the Puritans of apathy and spiritual laziness. That's one group that didn't roll that way.
So what I heard Matt saying was
that's never
that
That's not going to be good.
Is very utilitarian in his voting, and even with his abstaining from a vote. Correct. Because you want the long-term good.
That's good.
And you want it to work out. And so you saw.
But he didn't violate a moral compass to accomplish that. Like it wasn't the ends justify the means.
I don't believe it. Hey, timestamp this. If then you guys are fighting, just pull this back out. Remember real the good times.
Yeah. That's all good. All right. Well.
Covered a lot about character. Future podcasts, we'll talk more about processes, outcomes, role of the church, and maybe a little bit on government nations loving the stranger, maybe getting some immigration stuff.
Correct. We feel like that was all right there.
Any closing shots?
Oh, we're still on.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, until I walk around and hit that button.
Here we go.
I hope it's still running. The screen went black. I was just like, oh. I can't monitor the audio anymore. I need to.
That means we could have lost.
We could have lost
me
all of
backing
this.
up Mr.
But if you're
Gilbert
listening to
here.
this,
That's perfect.
you know
I
we
like that
didn't.
never comes to the surface. So I maintain the moral high ground against you. I don't like that there's evidence that you were halfway decent.
So good. Well, how do we close it out with two guests?
I think, well, I mean, maybe they arm wrestle for who can close us out. I don't know.
It's a weird position to try to.
Correct. Yeah. What would that look like? We're
Maybe
doing
you
a
just say it
left-knee
together.
deal?
Say it together.
And like,
do you remember?
I believe I do. We're ready to do this thing. Now watch. I'm going to say the wrong thing. It's going to be absolute grease fire. Ready? And that's our take.
Thanks for listening to Take Two. Find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube for those who want to watch our videocast.